Hello everyone and welcome to Solshow. As always, if you want to play a little game and you liked the movie Chronicle, give it a thumbs up. If you did not like the movie, give the video a thumbs down. That introduction out of the way, Chronicle, that we are talking about today, one of my favorite movies. And I actually, that doesn't necessarily say much because I have a lot of favorite movies. So when there's like 50 of them, it diminishes, the weight of that sentence. But Chronicle, it came out 5 years ago, which is crazy to me. But this movie was written by Max Landis, who is a YouTuber I follow, who makes pretty good content, and you want, like, his videos, a lot of them are vlogs about just storytelling, and you understand. He has a vlog talking about how the main character doesn't have to be a good guy. That's a dumb rule. And he goes on from there. But with Chronicle, it gives us a movie we've kind of always wanted to see and gives us other movies in the process. It gives us a movie of the ultimate fantasy. The ultimate fantasy that, a kid dreams about is developing superpowers. But instead of using said superpowers to be a superhero, you use them to be you. You use your superpowers to do dumb shit, to manipulate the world around you, to fit your ego in your mind. And even better, you have a bunch of great friends doing it. And that would have been a great movie in itself. But it's also a super villain, the making of a supervillain story. Andrew Detmer in this movie. This movie put that actor whose name I'm forgetting on the map for me, who I learned a long time ago but I'm now forgetting. Whenever he pops up, I am happy because I love Chronicle so much. But that's a great actor, Andrew Detmer. A lot of the actors and actresses in this movie, not recognizable, especially during the time of this movie. Which is great. That is great. Because this is a found footage movie, which I'm sure helped it get, introduced. I'm sure if it wasn't a found footage movie and it had a bigger budget, it would have been really hard to make. But this is a found footage movie. And this was coming out at a time, and even if it came out today, where found footage movies are stale. Alright? We saw multiple Paranormal Activities, we saw movies rip that off, and finally we have a movie that not only is going to make a good found footage movie, make an interesting found footage movie, but take the found footage element and elevate that. I should probably get the synopsis out of the way. It's three of our main characters. They find something underground. It's not told to us specifically, but basically when they leave said scary place underground, they develop superpowers. They essentially have telekinesis, but that also means they can fly, and they can vibrate, they can do all these things with their mind. And every little bit of this movie I find interesting. I love when they're having the fucking pranks. I love when they're, just gloating with their fucking powers, bending the world around them. That's the ultimate power fantasy. The fact that everything is going in their favor, it's great. I love their friendship. I love the fact that the main character was this nerd who films everything, which, is a very specific character thing, and it doesn't really make sense other than, to have found footage. But it makes sense because some people have thought of that, including me. And I think it would be an awkward guy like this who would do that and follow up on that, which he does, which is great. And the budget isn't amazing for this movie. I'm just saying that because I see some things in the quality, so I assume it's a budget thing. They don't look like they're flying, which is like, you kind of need that. It does kind of look like, because if they have telekinesis, they obviously have to lift themselves up and kind of dangle themselves. Which I think they should have said more specifically, if they were dangling themselves. At first, it's really bad. It's very obviously that they're on a wire. But later in the movie, when they're actually, flying and superpowering, it was only a little bit distracting, so I enjoyed that. Another amazing part about this movie is the power scaling. This is like this stupid fantasy film where you put yourself in the main character. He's not a Mary Sue at all. He definitely gets his ass kicked left and right, but the main character in this film, life doesn't go his way, and then you get introduced to these other guys, and each of them are like interesting in their own way. We have the main guy who's like the heart of gold, and then we have Steve, who's amazing. You really feel it when he dies. Spoilers, by the way. When Steve dies, that hits you. You just see the funeral. The editing in this movie, it's telling a big story really fast. It's great, and it totally makes sense in context of the story, because he's not going to film his friend dying. He's not going to film these little bits. And sure, you could just say, oh, those are the unimportant bits that didn't make the movie. It still presents this idea that we're seeing the important parts and the parts that were filmed during this movie within the kayfabe of this being a found footage movie. Another thing, I love when anything does this. There is power scaling to these characters. So Steve, the black guy, he's kind of obviously like the strongest one. Like when everyone else is like moving like little bits, like moving shopping carts, Steve moves a fucking car. And it's explained within this movie that your muscles are like elastic. You gotta work it out, and eventually your telekinesis, you gotta work out, and eventually you'll get big and buff and strong, and you can do about anything. But he moves his car. It's way too early for that even, but his face, he has a face nosebleed, like, period, which was a great joke. But that shows how strong Steve is. And then we had Andrew, who is very technical. He can move like Lego pieces and type on a keyboard and move his camera around, which I'll get to. And all these things that are delicate and you need your hands. He has that, which would explain why he has steady hands when he's filming. But the camera itself, we get these amazing shots. These guys are standing on a rooftop, or like in Tibet. Maybe not the one in Tibet, I don't think that counts, but like along skyscrapers or whatever. And we get these wide move around, or even when he's in his bedroom, it's cool there. These cameras are moving in a way that's like he's moving it with his mind, but we don't see the shadow of the camera. It's perfectly like he's moving this shit with his mind, and it totally fits the kayfabe of this movie. It's even better because I think that's doing something new with found footage, giving an excuse to use good filmmaking and be interesting with it. There's a scene where Andrew is just kind of in his room, and in the background you can hear his like dad, who's a fucking drunk asshole, and his mom is dealing with cancer, and he's yelling about his wife dying, and Andrew's just fascinated about this camera, and he's in his room. That is great. It reminds us, of the parents who are important characters, and Andrew, and we're getting fucking cool filmmaking. I love that scene. I love basically every scene. We see Andrew after Steve dies. It was kind of like an excuse. He got an excuse to get rid of Steve, and even though it was kind of on impulse, the side of Andrew that was triggered via his world crumbling. He thought he could use this to get what he wanted. None of it happened. He was back to square one, so he was like, fuck this, and he killed Steve. Not completely intentional, but he kills him. And after that, he's a loose cannon. He's gonna get his fucking mom medicated. He doesn't give a shit about his dad picking on him. He doesn't give a shit about the bullies. He's gonna do it in public. He's gonna get the fucking job done. He's basically a monster. And he winds up in the hospital. You think he's unbeatable at this point, and he immediately, these characters, although are being presented like a Superman, they're not actually doing anything that grand, but it's being filmed grand. We see Andrew, and he gets thrown in the hospital because he's a dumb idiot, and then, he's kind of beat up, so it's a little bullshit, but he's fighting for his life. He's on adrenaline. The biggest thing he does, really, after flying around the city, he's beat up. There's a bunch of cop cars, and there's cops with, lasers on them. They're about to shoot him down, which he would die if they all just fucking shot him. We saw Matt get shot, and he got fucking shot. I don't know if their barriers are good enough for that yet. Matt, by the way, he's fucking off with girls. He hasn't developed the great superpowers yet. He's still behind. Andrew is stronger than him. He's just the heart of gold character. That it needs to get the girl, which is a very little cute romance. But Andrew, the biggest thing he does is he pushes all these cars away. Fuck all these cops. He's standing tall. The world around him is crumbling, like the windows and shit. He's on top of the world. He's screaming, ah, fucking, ultimate power. You don't know if he's fucking Dragon Ball Z about to blow up the planet, if he's about to fuck everything. You don't know what he's capable of at this point, and he very will. Maybe all of this, maybe he'll die trying, and his face will just if he does this. But maybe he will just fuck up everything. He'll take the ultimate weight onto his shoulders, but he's still gonna lift that shit. But then Matt, out of nowhere, he says, "Don't make me do this." Fucking kills him with this big beam. It's stated, very clearly in the movie, you have to set up barriers if you're about to get attacked. So if there's a fork, about to get stabbed, barrier, clean. So maybe if you're strong enough, a bullet, barrier. We don't see that, as far as I remember. But he's obviously, in this all-powerful God mode, gets stabbed in the gut, dies. And, if we want to say that he's this legendary character who can't die, and he lived, which I don't think I would enjoy, but if you were going to do a sequel, you could say maybe they used his body, or there's these new people. I know there were talks of a sequel for this for a while, but I don't know. I don't want to say there's going to be one when there's not. It's been 5 years, so I don't think there's going to be one. But Chronicle, he hits him with the spear. We cut to him in Tibet, Matt, where he always wanted to be, Andrew, and he says this final goodbye to him. It's kind of this eulogy for Andrew. He says, "I know you're not a bad person." It's a great send-off to this character. Matt, in the end, you like him. Steve was great. All the characters are great. The storylines from beginning to end, I love the uprising, the downfall, and this power-hungry side of Andrew. He develops. Steve, we see him, just with his girlfriend getting an ego trip. He's laughing at Andrew. He's always been cocky, but he gets that little too cocky. I'm gonna be president. I respect you. I'm a good guy, but I'm gonna be president, and that's just a fact. That cockiness. And then Matt, heart of gold, he gets his relationship, and he deals with Andrew. He's not the prevalent character. Andrew is the main character of the story. That's why he's on the poster with that good fucking shot of the clouds and the middle finger, and he moves the clouds. That is an amazing poster. I want that poster. It's a good one. The movie, the cover of this, it's this found footage blur. My cover, at least, is this found footage blur of these three characters that look like little dots. It looks like some shit you caught on a camera, but it was blurry and windy, and it matches the whole aesthetic for this movie. And the first time I watched this movie, it was on Redbox, and Redbox, I think some people I know just watched it, and I, missed out because I got home late. I popped it in just so it wouldn't go to waste, so I could, return it and say, I watched it. I watched it on my laptop, real close, it was just on my lap, which is an underrated way to watch movies. It's very direct, it's very in your face, it's very personal. And these characters, you know, they're great. I think that I really remember a big part of my score is going to be like that great memory I have. Like when you watch an amazing film and you just have that high, it was like that. But Andrew as a character, you know, very underrated, amazing supervillain. And sure, he kind of matched this whole Carrie, like they all bullied me and now I'm gonna like beat them back up power fantasy that like fucked up people have. But they do school shootings and shit, and he's gonna do his superpowers. You know, that's that. That's why this movie like fits multiple lanes. But you know, it's not a bad direction. I think this character is a supervillain, and where they took him was interesting, and it had a big epic climax. I think that's one of the best things you could have done. It's written very well. Max Landis killed it. And none of these, like, movies like this don't happen. I think the found footage thing was the only thing that, like, from a studio level was, like, acceptable. We'd had no-name actors, a plot that was, you know, experimental, creative, and it was a movie that, like, easily could have failed. But it succeeded. It's fucking badass as fuck. I love it. Chronicle, one of my favorite movies. I love it. Start to finish, great movie. I'm going to give Chronicle a 9 out of 10, the Soul Badge of Approval, and the Hall of Fame badge. With that being said, guys, thanks so much for watching, and with that, I leave.